It's the Final Word Daily, and I just banged my arm on the table. I don't know if that's made a difference to the recording, but we'll find out in due course. I'm Daniel Norcross, and I'm in Visakhapatnam. I'm so delighted to be here. It's pouring with rain. I'm with Geoff Lemon, and we're here to tell you all about a crunch game, a massive game, a huge game. India, the hosts, were up against it. They kind of needed a win today, although technically speaking, they still could have lost and got through had they beaten Bangladesh, but they don't need to worry about Bangladesh because they've marmalised New Zealand. They've taken them to the cleaners. And to tell you all about that in 30 glorious seconds or fewer, or maybe a little bit more, here's Geoff Lemon.
Well, must win for India and must win for New Zealand. India musted, New Zealand did not must. Massive opening partnership, 212 for India after they were invited to bat between Smriti Mandana and Pratika Rao. So they both made centuries. Jemima Rodrigues iced the cake with 76 not out in no time at all. And New Zealand got nowhere near it. Susie Bates out early in the chase. Sophie Devine didn't make any, and it was left to Brooke Halliday to play a one-handed resistance job, but it was never going to be close enough to get there. There were some rain adjustments. We'll go through that, but New Zealand made 271 for 8 in 44 overs. India only faced 49.
Yeah, it was kind of like fun and run-drenched and briefly rain-drenched.
Yeah,
but this competition
and rarely sun-drenched.
Yeah, very rarely sun-drenched. Slightly concerning for the back end of the tournament. I've done a World Cup in India at this kind of time of year, as have you, and we didn't get too much in the way of rain. I don't know whether we're just unlucky in the venues or unlucky in the weather. These things can happen. As a British person, I am in no position to wag a finger at any country when it comes to rain. And if there are any people from Sydney who are watching, neither are you. So you get back in your box right now. But I want to talk about that opening partnership because it was a contrast in styles. You've got the poster girl of Indian cricket, Smriti Mandana. She's all over the adverts here. She's got a whole bunch of adverts, actually. And part of it is because, look, she's photogenic, but just physically when she's not playing cricket. And when she is playing cricket, she's even more photogenic. I hate making comparisons with male cricketers, but it is sort of relevant. She's like the David Gower of this world. Every shot she plays, every cover drive she plays becomes accompanied with an ooh and an ah. And every time that she gets out, it feels like it's an enormous disappointment and that she's done this deliberately to upset everybody. When she hasn't, she's just a human being who's occasionally fallible. And it's because we would rather watch her bat forever. But at the other end, alongside her, was Pratika Rawal, a woman who's come into this side to replace Shefali Verma. And Shefali is a kind of raw, unpolished talent who played shots the like of which we'd not seen in women's cricket before. The crunch behind square, the incredible power, almost to say waggy and brilliance at the top of the order. But in comes Pratika Rawal. And I wouldn't say the jury's out because she started her career very well, but there are Shefali Vermerites out there who are maybe a little bit annoyed. The difference between Rawal and Mandana and between Rawal and Shefali Verma is she is the most coached cricketer I think I have seen in the women's game. And she is like the woman who has had 1,000 throwdowns a day from her father from the age of 7. You know all those videos you get on Twitter, I refuse to call it by that letter, where you see, would you please take a look at my 6-year-old daughter and tell me how good you think she is? And you go, oh my God almighty, have you seen the height of that elbow? Have you seen the ease of transfer of weight from one leg to the other?
And it's literally just Elise Perry, because that's what happened with her, because her father just pelted her in the nets for 15 years. And in the end, she ended up debuting at, 17 was it, for Australia, and becoming the best who's ever represented the country.
Good for him, and also good for Mr. Chanderpaul Senior, who did that to Shivnarine. I'm not sure he did the same to Genarine, so there's something for you to think about.
I don't think he had time, because
Well,
Shiv actually had to go and play cricket.
Yeah,
but he probably knew some people, and he could just make them go and throw balls at Tej when he wasn't there. So,
but I think Taj probably, because it wasn't the dad, and they went, oh, should we have a rum punch instead? I don't know. Look, this is almost possibly libelous. I don't know, but what's not happening is, I don't think he's getting the same number of throwdowns as Pratika Rawal, because I have seldom seen an innings of more technical perfection. And the slight problem with it was, for me, that it left me a bit cold, and it shouldn't do, because it was brilliant. It was a brilliant foil to Mandana. And then, of course, Jemima Rodriguez in a sort of screw you 76 not out of 55, but it never is with her because she's so very gracious about being left out of the side. She's always the first one to go for whatever reason. I don't know quite whether it still goes back to that shot she played in Cape Town when she went after a ball that was over her head in the semi-final against Australia, wasn't it, when India had that game covered and she got a tiny little nick to it just after Harmanpreet had got run out. But for whatever reason, Jemima, it's always, well, if we're going to have a sixth bowler, she's got to go. Well, she came in and put the icing on the cake. And it was quite important icing, really, because from that position of 212 for one, it was still possible that India might have actually spluttered their way to 305, 310, which would have likely have been enough, but on a pitch that was as delicious as that. So, look, that top three was magnificent. And to me, Geoff, it suggests that Navi Mumbai is going to be a shootout for batters. Bowlers are going to be cannon fodder. India are now confirmed as semi-finalists. They will definitely play there. The vagaries of the competition mean that net run rate doesn't count as much as how many wins you've got. And India now have 3 wins.
And head-to-head. Well, they've got the head-to-head thing. So they could, if things went really weird with net run rate and other results, they could end up on the same points with New Zealand or Pakistan, but they've beaten them both. So
yeah, well, they've got wins. Wins is first. Wins is first, and they've got 3, and no one can get more than that because they had washouts. So they've been confirmed today. They're definitely going to finish 4th. They can't finish above 4th. The team that finishes first will therefore play them in Navi Mumbai, and the smart money would obviously be on Australia. They play South Africa in the last remaining game of consequence in the group stage. The other 3 games are just for show and for trying to impress your board and trying to get some money. But South Africa against Australia will determine that. And I think...
But the way India played today, if you're Australia, mightn't you give the slightest thought to just chuck in the last game and just avoid them, or even if indeed if you're South Africa,
you've got to play in Mumbai one way or the other.
But you can have the chance of one of those teams getting knocked out. I suppose you've got to play one of them. If you're finishing second, you've either got to play Australia or India in the final. If you're South Africa. But if you're Australia, you'd probably rather play England in the semi, and then you've given South Africa a chance to maybe pull a surprise and beat India, and South Africa might be less of a threat in the final than India would. It's all theoretical.
You might do, or you might just think we're just the best
beat everyone
in the world by a country mile, and we haven't lost a game of cricket in the World Cup for quite a long time.
We don't intend to.
And we quite like to continue doing that. So I think the chances are that if it isn't Australia, it's because South Africa will have played very well in the game that they play against each other, the last game of consequence in the group stages. And I think we've got an interesting shootout because we all know that, and this has been true of India for a long, long time, only recently has their bowling come to the fore in both men's and women's cricket, that they build their sides around batters, and they've got, in that top 5, on a flat deck, the chance to post big totals. And this is going to be India's best chance, and it's partly why, and understandably as hosts, they've got the semi-final in Navi Mumbai with the hope that they'd also get the final in Navi Mumbai and know the conditions and therefore be best placed to win. That's perfectly normal. That's what hosts do. England would do the same thing. Australia would do the same thing. It's how it happens. And I thought today, when you consider that India were precariously placed, although we all knew that they weren't because of the way the fixtures were going, but having, won 2 out of 5, they've lost their last 3, there was a little bit of shudder. And there were people, especially after the way that they bottled it against England, going, oh, they don't have the temperament. This is a disaster. They might be letting India down. All kind of the manner of nonsense that comes from fans. Today, complete reset, and we've understood and seen what the template is for Indian success. It's to score monstrous quantities of runs with very good batters on very good pitches, and that will give them a chance, won't it?
It'll give them a chance. It'll give them a chance. But, I mean, what we've seen is what this opening partnership can do, and we've been waiting for India to click because they came into this tournament where we were talking about them as the clear second favourite behind Australia because of just how violent that one-day series against Australia had been, that absurd game where Australia made 400 and India made 370 chasing. They've got that power. And then it wasn't clicking for the first few games. Mandana wasn't making runs in the first few. They lost those 3 close ones. But that partnership, you talk about Pratikkarel being the perfect foil, that's not just today, that's across the whole year. They've put on more than 1,500 runs together this year. They're within 70 odd, what did I calculate? 78 runs away from the Tendulkar-Ganguly record in 1998, which is the most runs ever by any partnership in a year of one-day cricket. That's how good Mandana and Rahul have been as a partnership. So, I mean, Shefali Verma there might be a few enthusiasts around the edges, but she's a distant memory as far as anybody involved in this Indian team is, because, she could come out and hit 70 off 40 now and then, but mostly she didn't. And if you've got somebody who can hit 40 off 70 more often than not, that's the job that Pratikkarel's had. And it's been okay. It's been enough, even though she doesn't score super, super quickly. It was interesting because it felt like a complete domination, double 100 opening partnership, but to the point where they both reached 50 at strike rates of well under 100, those two. They weren't flying along through that first part. They were just building. And then it picked up after that. Mandana, by the time she got to about 80, she'd taken her strike rate above a runner ball, and then attacked further from there and got to the 100 and pulled out the big slog sweep on 109 and was caught remarkably, really, by Hannah Rowe in the deep with the ball that sort of bobbled off and hit her and spun behind her, and she turned around and got it on the second effort. And Pratikkarel did catch up later, once she'd got to 100 as well, and hit a couple of sixes in the end and got out trying for another one, but ended up at 122 of 134. So even with that late catch-up, wasn't quite a runner ball, but they don't need that. If they've got the rate that Mandana scores at, and then when you've got Rodrigues and Harmanpreet coming in next who can score quickly, that's perfectly fine for them to have that anchor, and that anchor means that they can get to 300-plus scores even in a disrupted innings.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be their methodology. I think there's an issue today with Richa Ghosh. She was injured in the fielding part of things, and she is a very important part of that if they're going to take Australia really deep, because you've got to keep on going. So 340 against New Zealand is always going to be more than enough on that deck. It could be 370, it could be 380, so you've got to keep on being bold. It's something that England manifestly weren't against Australia yesterday or the day before yesterday. I forget when that bloody game was now. Probably was just yesterday, wasn't it? I think it was.
I think so.
Was doing it.
Yeah.
You've got the only way you're going to get at Australia is if you can really leave everything out there. And India can do that if they can keep on batting all the way down. So they made a little change today. Amanjot Kaur was out. They brought Shamima Rodrigues back in. So they went back to the kind of 5 bowlers. And on that kind of a surface, I think that they will be able to trust themselves to keep going. But if Richa Ghosh doesn't come back, that is quite something of a big loss, because she's a very important part of their lower order. Should they lose a couple of wickets to ambition, caught in the deep perhaps around the 40th over, I'm looking forward. I'm crystal ball gazing, but we're at that stage now, because let's face it, the rest of the tournament is pointless until we get to those semi-finals. Just to be absolutely clear with anybody who thinks that they've looked at a table and can see a way, no, you can't. You just can't. This is what's going on now. We're going to keep on doing these dailies. Of course we are. And we're going to keep on talking about these games. But this is like the big issue. We should talk a little bit about New Zealand, though, because they put up a bold and typically Kiwi effort on a very good surface. They weren't helped by the fact that their big guns, Bates and Devine, didn't click today. Bates hasn't clicked in this tournament at all. It's not.
She's had a miserable time. She made
she's got 10
naught,
in the last
29
year and a bit.
Wash out. One.
If people are calling for her to retire, her recent form is not diabolical.
No, I'm not saying she's finished. I'm saying she's had a shit tournament. That happens.
She's had a diabolically shit tournament. And Devine, who's had a great tournament, has wasted a whole bunch of runs on a whole bunch of fixtures where those runs were really mostly unnecessary. Mealy Kerr looked quite handy for moments, but you knew that even with the Duckworth-Lewis adjusted target, it didn't stand a chance, really. Brooke Halliday, has made something of herself in this tournament, I would say. She's been around for quite a long time. She's no spring chicken, and we've seen her kind of try stuff for 5 or 6 years and just thought she was another Kiwi lower middle order batter who wasn't quite good enough. Well, I'd say in this tournament she's shown, I guess she's hitting a lot more balls, she's playing a lot more cricket, and she's shown what the value of actually playing a lot more cricket can do for you.
I was super impressed with her today because basically, early in her innings, it was already more than 10 and over required. The game had basically been lost at that stage because it's like, okay, you need to go at 10 runs and over for 30 overs or something like that, and you've got to do it all yourself. But she found ways to keep the boundaries flowing with variety. She wasn't just trying the same couple of things. She would work around the Indian bowlers a bit. Okay, now I'm going to go the reverse sweep a couple of times, and then when you move the field around to do that, I'll start trying to play it through mid-wicket, and when you change that around, I'll start trying to go over cover or mid-off. And she was remarkably successful. There were an untold number of shots to the boundary that skimmed just wide of a fielder or just through a fielder on occasions, or on one occasion off a fielder and almost over the rope for 6. But she was gutsy today because when you know the game's basically gone, it must be really difficult to maintain the focus to say that I'm going to keep trying anyway and just to get as close as we can. We're probably not going to, we're definitely not going to win it unless something really fluky and weird happens and someone bowls 40 wides in an over or something like that to bring us back into contention. But she had that game, and Izzy Gaze had that game as well when she took a while to get going with Halliday. But even once Brooke Halliday got out, Izzy Gaze kept going through to the end. So I was impressed with them. It takes a certain moral fortitude to be able to keep pushing on even when things are hopeless, and not just say, oh, well, I'll just knock the ball around and end up whatever, not out. Like, I'm going to keep the foot down the whole way through, and they did.
You're talking about Kiwis. I mean, moral fortitude is basically what they've got over the rest of us. They are superior moral beings, and they prove it all the time, especially by not ramming it down our throats. We ram their moral fortitude down our own throats. And I'm getting, frankly,
and theirs,
sick and tired of it.
Yeah.
Before you take us to the Hall of Fame, I just want to have just one last observation, and it is kind of not exactly having it. 271 for 8 off 44 overs New Zealand got. And they batted with some enterprise. They batted pretty well. But if they're getting 271 for 8 off 44 overs in a losing cause, I think we could be in for some stonkingly high-scoring semis and finals at Navi Mumbai, because Indore has been not bad for batting. Vizag has been great for batting. This is almost like it's designed to break records. 23,000 people were there today. That was a record that was broken. It's the most number of people to go to a group game in a Women's World Cup, and well played for doing that. Navi Mumbai is the home of women's cricket, really, in India. And you can kind of see why, can't you? Because Indians love runs. And you'd say that everybody loves runs. They don't necessarily. There are some cricketing cultures that it's not really about getting 220 and 20 overs in a T20. Some of them like a low-scoring game. I think English people actually prefer a slightly lower-scoring game. Indians like a high-scoring game. And Navi Mumbai is made for high-scoring. And I can see records being broken in a semi and a final there, don't you reckon?
Well, on the basis of today, who knows what could happen. Before the Hall of Fame, a word for Lacuna Sports, who are sponsoring this program for women and girls who want cricket kit that fits them and that does the job that they need it to do, because they don't need kit that is the same kit that works for men and boys, because bodies are different. They're different shapes. They do different things, and they have different requirements. And remarkably, nobody thought of this until a few years ago when Lacuna said, there seems to be a gap in the market. And then they went, what does Lacuna mean? It means a gap. Imagine if we were to close that. One of the clubs they've been working with is up in Scotland, the Lomond Lynx, based in Fife in Falkland. So Lee and Katie, who work for and who started up Lacuna, actually travelled to Scotland in the spring to meet new teams and to help fit them with the kit that they needed. One of those was Lomond Lynx, who have the most adorable Instagram page. I've got to say, you go and look at that. They've got their player profiles. They've got their team photos. They're all done up in resplendently in their purple kit. They're all extremely cute, and they're also serious cricketers, and that's why they got their kit sorted with Lacuna. So from whatever junior stage of girls cricket development through to seniors, you can talk to the company directly and the people who work there directly to work out what you need, and they can help get that stuff made for you specifically so that it suits your team and your players exactly the way that they need. And that's likely to encourage players to continue to remain in the sport where other players at other clubs might decide to sack it in because it's all too hard.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't rocket science, is it? But as you pointed out, no one's ever got round to doing it beforehand. And let's face it, neither of us did either. So, we can't get too smug about this.
No.
We've just got to thank Lacuna for that. With a bit of luck, those Scottish players will prove to be absolutely magnificent, and England will be able to steal 4 or 5 of them and give themselves a chance in the next World Cup.
Well, start with the Olympics. We'll see how we go. Hall of Fame in a moment. It's the final word daily, the Women's World Cup daily. It's day 24. It's India and New Zealand, Daniel Norcross and Geoff Lemon. I'm going to start with the small one. I can't remember which player it was who whacked the ball at Harmanpreet at mid-on or mid-off, where she went sliding in feet first, like the football tackles that we talked about last time we spoke, but somehow missed the ball completely, but not only missed it and not only parried it, but also parried it through mid-off for 4, rather than just normally when somebody knocks the ball away, maybe there's an extra run, but it's not usually so expertly connected. It's like a player coming in at the far side of the box to perfectly meet a cross so that it bullets into the bottom corner. But Harmanpreet was able to do that. It was probably her best touch of the day. She made 10 today and was somehow out there for about 60 runs being added because Rodrigues was going completely bananas at the other end at the same time. So it's nice to be on that end of a partnership at times. But yes, that was an enjoyable moment.
My one is, well, how can I put this, really? It's that this tournament has been bedeviled by rain, and we got some rain today.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's obviously drives a lot of people mad, and it's mostly Colombo-based, is couldn't they have started earlier? Yeah, we've litigated that case, blah, blah, blah. But it's then also the fact that in order to get a game in, you have to have 20 overs and whatnot. And we saw a great example of that the other day when poor old Pakistan was sort of forced to play against South Africa because South Africa's fielders were perfectly happy to field in a boggy marsh because they wanted to win. And Pakistan's batters couldn't really go no because they were in the dry bit running up and down the pitch, But what happens here is that we all get very, very angry about these things, and we talk about cut-off times, and umpires have got to, therefore follow the letter of the law and the playing conditions. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they, speak to the ground staff and go, when is the pitch going to be ready, and when can you guarantee that everything's going to be fine? And we got this rain delay with India 48 overs into their 50-over innings. And so then there's an amount of time that you can make up. You can make up an hour. But the ground staff must have said after an hour, we could be ready in an hour and 12 minutes or something. And so the umpires have taken that completely literally, and they've gone, okay, in that case, I'm putting on my Lauren Eggenbag voice now.
Sure.
Because she was one of
famously, yes. People clamour for it at night spots around the country.
I'm a big fan of her.
Daniel, can you do your Lauren Argenbach? Just after Bharat finishes his Ravi Shastri, you do your Lauren Argenbach.
In the blue corner. So yes. So Lauren, who's a brilliant umpire, by the way, and a tremendous woman, though, she's looked at this and she looked at the timings and gone, shit. This means that we can theoretically get 49 overs in with a 10-minute break. So, pointlessly, India troop out to bat with 1 over to go, 2 wickets down. New Zealand, what are the tactics, I wonder? What are the tactics? We're going to bowl 1 over. The commentator I can't remember who was on commentary at the time when Harmanpreet Kaur got out, but even managed to make that sound like an important event when she was out off the 5th ball of the 49th over with the score 336 for 3, having them trooped out again for 5 balls. And then
they've removed the Indian captain. Oh, consternation.
Harmanpreet is gone. What a catch by Eden Cousin. Rosemary Mayer.
Yeah.
All this nonsense, right?
Yeah.
In comes Rishi Ghosh, hits a 4 off the last ball off the edge. And he
nicks a 4, yeah.
Goes equally mad. Oh, it's 340, not 336, which is already way too many.
Yep.
But they've trooped out. They've done all that for 1 over. And all the time you're kind of thinking, I don't like the rain thing. Could they not have just found a way of not wasting 5 minutes on the over and 10 minutes between innings and just gone, do you know what? Let's call it 48 overs. Let's just get out there and get on with the batting thing.
Yes.
It was
Let's do a DLS adjustment for the score at 48 overs. 48. And then in any case, it fucking rained again at the start of the New Zealand innings. So then they had to get more overs taken off. So,
Exactly. So we were that was deeply Hall of Fame for me, because this World Cup has been one in which, and I want to make very clear that I'm not having a go at the umpires for this. These are the playing conditions, and they're actually sticking to the letter of the law. And they
would have said we can get 51 more overs, so that's that means 50 for New Zealand and one. Yeah, with a 10-minute break that we have to have because we've just been off the field for, I don't know, an hour and a half. Thus, it's important that we have another break.
They've got to put their pads on. Let's not forget. So, the point of having the other over, that 1 over, is that you then needlessly add that 10-minute break into proceedings, and then it started raining. So you're kind of going, there was quite a lot of hurting. But,
or if you're going to be that close, if you can get 51, you can get 52. Like if you're,
I think it's 50. Because it's actually 50 because there was the 1 extra to bowl and the 49 for the other side. So
right,
yeah. But
if it were, because losing the last 2 overs of a 50 over burst is can be very significant for a batting team, because if you're on top and you've got a head of steam up and you're flying along like they are, and then the last 2 overs are the 2 overs where you might make 30 or 40, if you're really putting a team to the sword, those are the overs when you go, okay, you've got, say you're right on top, you've got 10 overs to go, you escalate, and then in the last 2, that's when you go absolutely nuts. So yeah, wickets might fall, but those can be the overs for a batting side where you're holding back in the 46th or the 47th just a little bit, because you're going to go fully in on. So to lose the 49th and 50th is a big deal, and that adjustment. It's hard to gauge what that adjustment should be, because it's done on averages, not on exceptional performances.
All in all, though, Geoff, it was just plain silly.
And it was silly.
It was like they faced 48 overs, and they all trooped out for 1 over, and they all trooped off again, and then they came out, and then it rained, and then they trooped back on again.
Well,
the bit no one's fault, but it is Hall of Fame worthy.
The bit that was particularly silly, and you said you didn't know who was on commentary. I can tell you who was not on commentary at this point. When Sue Redfern copped one in the ribs, low full toss, Brooke Halliday nailed it back straight into the standing umpire, who did not have the fast foot skills to get out of the way. Bang into the rib cage, stopped 4 almost certainly, and then they show the replay, which is thunk. And you can hear very audibly in the background of the commentary box. She's not on, but I'm 100. I will go to my grave and swear that it was Katie Martin, because it must have been going ha 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 ha.
That sounds like Katie.
And then sort of inaudible something, and then unutterable something, and I'm like, Katie. SOS, we can hear you in between the overs. All of if you're watching the world feed outside, if you're watching, the ICC website feed where they don't go to an ad break, heads up to all the TV commentators. We can hear you. Remember Andrew Strauss getting caught out in this manner. I've overheard some interesting conversations during this tournament, and also when you're standing at the back of the box and you're not on air and you're laughing very loudly, we can hear that too. So. It was with great humanity and compassion that Katie Martin enjoyed that replay, and I hope that Sue is able to have a chat to you about it at some time when you cross paths in a hotel somewhere. That's it. This has been our show. That's the Hall of Fame. That's the Final Word Daily. Thanks to Lacuna Sports. .co.uk. Go check out their website if you want to help kit out women and girls playing the game, or if you indeed are those women and girls and you want to kit yourselves out, please go and see what they've got to offer. Patreon.com/thefinalword if you want to help us continue to make the show. Daniel Norcross, thank you for your company. I've been Geoff Lemon, and we are out of here. Bye.